Hey guys, welcome to the MTB Garage. My name is Sean. In today's video, we're going to be going over the basics of mountain bike maintenance. Now, maintaining your bike on a regular basis is a really important thing, and doing so can help ensure the longevity of your components, as well as ensure that your bike is going to be performing and operating as well as it can. Before we get into the video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified about future content. And if you want to support the channel, head over to the MTB Garage merch store. The link is down in the description. Pick yourself up a t-shirt or sweatshirt or even a fanny pack. There's some great stuff on there. And this week only, we're going to be doing 10% off your entire order. So make sure to use the code MTB10 at checkout and you'll get 10% off. So this is a Trans Advance that belongs to a friend of mine, and he has not taken very good care of his bike. I mean, this thing is in really bad shape. He's one of those riders that just rides and thinks that nothing's ever going to wear out. So I convinced him to let me use his bike for this video so we can finally get around to doing some maintenance on this thing. I'm going to be walking you guys through the proper maintenance procedures that you should be doing every ride, every week, every month, and so on. So let's get started by looking at what you should be doing every ride. So the first thing that you should be doing before every ride to properly maintain your bike is lubing your chain. Now, it's not just as simple as throwing the chain lube on and going for a ride. There's actually a procedure that you should follow. I'm going to walk you guys through that real quick. First, you want to wipe down your chain before putting lube on to get rid of any dirt or grime buildup from the previous ride. Next, lube the chain and make sure to get at least a drop on every link. Finally, pedal backwards to work the lube into the rollers and then wipe off any excess. This process works really well to keep your drivetrain clean and prevent buildup of dirt and old chain lube. The next bit of maintenance to do before every ride is to check your tire pressure. At the very least, you should squeeze your tires a few times to see if they might be low on pressure, but the best thing to do is to get an actual pressure gauge. This will help keep your tire pressure consistent and predictable. Finally, before every ride, you should do a quick check of a few key bolts. I usually check both axles, both brake calipers, and check for any play in the headset, bottom bracket, and hubs. So the first thing that you want to check every month or so is brake pad wear. I can usually eyeball it just by looking into the caliper, but it's pretty easy to remove your brake pads if they're hard to see. The recommended minimum thickness for brake pads is usually about 3 mm, including the backing. Another thing to do about once a month is a quick clean of the bike. I absolutely do not recommend washing your bike with a hose, as this can cause significant damage to your bike in the long term, so I like to just brush down the drivetrain and wipe the bike down with some bike wash and a clean rag. And lastly, every month you should be doing a complete bolt check. Bolts can rattle loose over time, so this will prevent your bike from just falling apart mid-ride. So the first maintenance procedure that you should be doing every 3 to 4 months is for everyone running tubeless out there. You should be checking the level of your tubeless tire sealant every 3 to 4 months to make sure that it hasn't run dry. Now, in a lot of cases, the sealant can run dry and your tire will still hold air no problem. And this is because the latex that's in the sealant has sealed all of the small holes and crevices of the inside of the tire that could have leaked. But if you do get a puncture at this point, your tire is just going to go flat because there's no sealant in there to seal it. So the easiest way to do this is going to be to take off the wheel and actually just shake it around. And if you can hear sealant moving around in the tire, then you should be good to go. And if you don't hear anything, chances are it's dried up. So we're taking off this wheel real quick and gonna see what we hear. Sounds like there's maybe a little bit in there, but we might be changing these tires later, so I'm gonna leave it. But just to show you guys how this works, this is just a quick and easy trick, and you don't have to take off the whole tire just to see how much sealant is in there. Now, if you did need to refill your sealant, it's actually one of the more simple things that you can do on your bike. So I'll walk you guys through a really quick process. First, I'm going to take out all the air out of the tire. Once all the air is out, you can just go ahead and pop the bead. Now that the bead is off of the rim here, we can just pull the bead of the tire up and over the rim. You just have to get a little bit so that you can access the tire and put some more sealant in, which there's actually some sealant left in there, so we're just going to go ahead and leave that. But if we did need sealant, I'd just be pouring it in at this point and then put the bead of the tire back on. And from here, just inflate it. So another thing that we want to be checking every 3 to 4 months is going to be spoke tension. Now, the best thing to do is use an actual tensiometer, which measures the amount of tension on each spoke, but most people don't have that in their home garage. So what I like to do is just take my hands and squeeze all the spokes here. And if any are really loose, you'll definitely know very quickly. And you'll be able to kind of adjust those individual spokes as necessary. Now, the best thing to do is to actually bring it down to your local bike shop and have them take a look at it. They'll have a tensiometer, and if need be, they can do any minor truing or any minor retensioning of the wheel. One thing that you should be checking for about every 6 months is the tread wear on your tires. You can lose a lot of performance from your bike if you're running bald or worn out tires, so keeping up on this is going to be a really important part of regular mountain bike maintenance. Now, my buddy rides a few times a week and he hasn't changed this tire in the last couple of years, so this back tire is really worn out at this point. But the front is actually in pretty good shape, so what we're going to do here is move the front to the back and then put a new front tire on. So the old tire combo was a Maxxis High Roller 2.5 in the front and High Roller 2.3 in the rear. We're moving the High Roller 2.5 to the rear, and I decided to go with a Schwalbe Knobby Nick 2.6 in the front. This combo will provide more traction, more stability, and a smoother ride from the higher volume tires. Once the tires are on, I'm going to add some grease to the dropper post. All you need to do here is remove the main seal head and add some grease underneath. Now, dropper posts are not one of those super high performance components, but it's still important to keep them clean and properly greased. One of the most important things to check at the 6-month mark is the chain wear, and this Park Tool chain checker is telling me that this chain is super worn out. Like I was saying, this chain is totally worn out. In fact, it's one of the most worn chains I think I've ever seen. Now, chain wear is actually a really good indicator to determine the life of the rest of the drivetrain. And since this one is so worn, that means it's going to be time to replace the cassette and the chainring as well. This is something I would totally expect to have to do at the 12 to 18 month mark, depending on how many miles you're putting on your drivetrain. So while I'm in here replacing the chainring, I want to check the bottom bracket real quick. I think it's been replaced recently, but I'm not sure. Basically, just going to start spinning it, feel the bearings. If they feel gritty or if there's any play, that's usually an indication that the bottom bracket needs to be replaced, but this one feels pretty smooth, so I'm going to leave it as is. Now, another really important thing to be checking every 12 to 18 months is going to be your brake bleeds. Now, in some cases, a lot of air can make its way into the brake system in that amount of time and cause your brakes to feel spongy or inconsistent. It's important to flush out all the old fluid and get rid of that air every 12 to 18 months or so. Now, bleeding brakes is a little bit more of an advanced technique, so I'm not going to go super deep into it in this video. Let me know down in the comments below if you'd like to see a video that goes in depth into brake bleeds. To put this into super simple terms, brake bleeding is just pushing fluid from one end of the brake to the other in order to flush out old fluid and any trapped air. Alright, so the brake bleeds are done, and next on the list is going to be suspension service. This is one of the most overlooked points of maintenance, but also one of the most important. Every brand has a different recommendation for their service interval, but my general rule of thumb is to do a basic fork and shock rebuild every 12 to 18 months. Now, a basic service for the fork means replacing the dust wipers, bath oil, and rebuilding the air spring. For the rear shock, it means replacing the air can seals and also the lubricating oil. This is different from a damper rebuild, which is a lot more involved, a lot more complex, and something I recommend doing on an as-needed basis. Now, just like brake bleeds, suspension service is a little bit more in-depth, so I'm going to save the detailed tutorial for another video. Right now, we're just going to do a quick walkthrough. First, I'm going to drop the lowers. Then I'm going to clean and re-grease the air spring assembly. Next, I'm going to replace the dust wiper seals. Quick pro tip, try not to hit yourself in the face with a flying dust wiper seal. Next, the lowers go back on, and we add the bath oil to finish it up. Moving on to the shock rebuild, we were just replacing more seals in the air can and then adding shock fluid and closing it back up. So there you have it, the basics of MTB maintenance. This bike's going to be running a lot more smoothly now that we've done all this work to it, and maybe my buddy will be complaining less as he goes up the hill. Who knows? Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two from this video. If you dig the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified about future content. If you want to support the channel, head over to the MTB Garage merch store. The link is down in the description. You can get t-shirts, sweatshirts, even fanny packs. There's all kinds of great stuff on there. This week only, we're running a deal. You can get 10% off your entire order. Just use the code MTB10 at checkout. Thanks for watching, and let's ride again next week.